you see things in your mind fills in the blanks. Now, that's not to say that that's not, every case of Bigfoot. I think there are some credible things out there. But for a breeding size populace of a great ape like that to be out there, it would be very hard to hide.
That's a good point.
And it would have to be a breeding size populace, for it to do, even forget we don't find bodies or this and the other. Well, you know what? There's animals all the time that, go extinct and then we find them again because they weren't really extinct. But that's a little harder to swallow. And I don't believe, I believe a lot of people that say what they saw really think they saw what they saw.
Brent Hand is a UFO researcher, speaker, and co-host of the award-winning Hysteria 51 podcast on the iHeartMedia podcast network. Tonight, we're going to talk about podcasting, UFOs, ghosts, Area 51, exorcism, chemtrails, Bob Lazar, Bigfoot, Alex Jones, Flat Earth, Blink-182 cruise ships, the fake and or real moon landing, all that and more coming up tonight on My Alien Life podcast. My Alien Life is recorded live from atop the Northern Rocky Mountains and is available on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and everywhere fine podcasts are found. My website is at www.myalienlifepodcast.com. There you will find my email address, all previously recorded shows, and more. I am Cameron Brower. This is My Alien Life, and the podcast starts right now.
My Alien Life podcast.
Three, two, 1, 0, and liftoff.
In the studio tonight, I have UFO researcher, speaker, and co-host of the Hysteria 51 podcast, Mr. Brent Hand. Brent, thank you so much for being here, and welcome, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here in the friendly confines.
Awesome.
And having a blast. Thank you very much.
Yeah, tonight we're podcast buddies, so let's do it.
That's right.
So
I taught you the secret handshake, and get my favorite beverage.
I'm in the club, yeah. So, but it's a definite
Right.
pleasure for me because I like what you guys do, and overall, I love podcasting. I always have. I listen to your show, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I just, I listen to podcasts like I watch the TV. I'm a podcast surfer. What about you?
Man, me too. And I tell you what really got me into it was a few years ago, even before I had even thought of having a podcast. I was driving all the time. I was driving. My dad had gotten sick, and he's like 3 hours away each way. And I was driving all the time, and I just started listening to podcasts constantly. And I tell you what, it makes the time fly, and I fell in love with so many different shows, and I was skipping all over the place. And this is Serial, where everyone then was all of a sudden a podcast fan, you know what I mean?
Right.
And and I really fell in love with the medium because everyone kind of could come in and do a show. Now, that doesn't mean that people are going to listen to your show. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a good show, but everyone has a chance. And so you don't have the same limitations that you have watching TV or things like that. And if you don't like something, you just change it and you're not out any money, just a little bit of your time, which I guess could be valuable, but hey.
And there's all kinds of them out there too, and some of them really aren't that great. I mean, there's some that maybe you can find on the internet that were made, 5 years ago, and maybe they made 6, and each one of them is a worse than the other. But I love those.
And they're still active, which kind of blows me away.
I search for those things.
Where they're paying money or doing something to host that stuff, and then they're just like, this is the I always think it's funny when people do, I do a Ramblecast. What do you talk about? Whatever I want. Good luck.
Right. Yeah. That's, I think it starts out well, but I mean, when you're doing it, and especially when you start and if you're on your own, it's really tough because, I mean, you run out of things to say to yourself, and it's hard. It's very hard.
My co-host John and I, when we were going to start out and we wanted to see if we could do it, we're like, well, the first thing we need to do is just throw our phone on and we're going to sketch out a really rough show and see if we can talk for an hour. And that one clocked in at over 3 hours. We had no idea where we're going, what we're going to say. And I was like, well, our first hurdle of if we have anything to say, I think we're okay on. Now we just need to, as far as, filler, now we need to polish that turd. And you know what? When we hit our 100th episode, we threw that one up on our Patreon. And he was upset about that. It's pretty rough. It's all over the place. Just a bunch of different things. We were throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck. But it was fun. Everyone starts somewhere. And that one's out there. You can actually hear it.
And when you know somebody and you're sitting across a table from them and you're doing this, I mean, you think of a lot of things to say and you can read off each other and you can read off each other's look. Whereas like what we're doing right now, I can't see you, I don't know when you're going to start and stop talking. And
that's
so
just
it's
because
tough.
I asked you to not look at me when we're in person. So, that's, it's in my rider.
So,
no, John and I have known each other our whole lives. We've known each other for 30 plus years now, and we've been friends. We lived together for a long time, and so needless to say, we finish each other's sentences sometimes, and we know what we're going to do, and we annoy the crap out of each other like an old married couple. So that works out good for at least our show because we kind of know what the other one's doing or saying, or when we're going to disagree with each other, and it's fun.
So where did you guys grow up?
Are from a little bitty town outside of Springfield, Illinois called Pleasant Plains. It's a town of 700 people.
Nice.
And I grew up on a farm outside of that town in the country. So
I grew up in a town of 100 people, and
oh man, I think 700 and people gasp. You just destroyed me.
we used to go to your town Friday night when I was in high school, but
the Metropolis.
Yeah, we
had a stop sign, so yeah.
We would have to go to your town just to get a gallon of milk. But you did have a stop sign?
We had no stop light, but there was a stop sign.
Right.
We're not highfalutin with those electric stoplights.
So how long have you guys been podcasting? When this whole thing start for you guys as a team?
Yeah, we just hit in June was 3 years that we've been working together on this. And Hysteria 51, our current show, is coming up on 3 years. It'll be 3 years in September, I believe it is. So pretty quick, just a couple months off of that, we've been doing Hysteria 51. We actually started with another show while we were fleshing out Hysteria 51. That was the one that we really wanted to do, called Rad or Fad, which was a pop culture, just for fun, just to get to talking and have some fun. And it didn't really take off. We had fun with it. It was just we looked at something from the 70s, 80s, 90s when we were growing up and saw if it lasted the test of time, stood the test of time, or if it was just a fad that fizzled out, much like that show did. It fizzled out. But yeah, so Hysteria 51, we got very lucky. We kind of caught lightning right off the bat. When we debuted the show, and within 2 weeks, we were actually number 64 on the iTunes charts overall.
Nice.
In 64, yeah. So we got very lucky. And as soon as that happened, we kind of started growing pretty quick. And lots of, shaking hands and kissing babies, I guess. I went to podcast movements, and I went on a podcast cruise and just met everyone I could and tried to meet everyone and digest as much, information as I could.
So who was there and what's on a podcast cruise?
So Podcast Cruise was actually put on by the people who do podcast movement. So it's just like you're on a cruise ship, which sounds funny, but you were. And so during the day, there's classes and seminars about, marketing and, finding, equipment and things like that. And then during that night, then you're free to, do whatever in your ports of call. It was a lot of fun though, and we met a lot of people and made connections that we're still friends with now. So, cool. It was definitely worth it for me. They don't do it anymore though.
Wow.
No podcast cruises.
Oh, that sounds fun. Did you ever make the new and noteworthy on iTunes?
I did not.
What?
So when we came out, So New and Noteworthy was kind of frozen for a lot of the time. I don't know if you've noticed. They do it sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
And then so we never were ever, even when we have had we've been in the top 100 or top 200 many times, but no, never did. And now they're supposedly redoing those all, and they're being updated, and they're supposed to be working again. Whether that's true or not, I haven't checked them, but yeah, we never did.
I started talking with Brent earlier, online a couple of weeks ago, I guess. This is a note for everybody out there. And after a few texts, he asked me, do you have anything planned? Maybe some structure, any specific topic, or are we just going to chat? And at that point, I know he was thinking this is going to be a long hour, and even up to the night, I didn't let you off the hook, and there was no need to prolong the pain. So here we are.
No, not at all. So our show it has a topic every week, and so John and I, when we're going to do a topic, I write the initial outline and I send it to him, and it's just bullet points. We've both done our own research on it. Then he goes over it and he'll flesh out some things he doesn't like or add to it, and then that's usually about the end of it. And we follow that topic, but we get off on tangents, but we have that. It's actually nice. And we do sideshows called Up All Nights. I don't know if you remember the USA Up All Night with Rhonda Shear.
Yep.
Up All Night.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we do those, and that's just like this. Like, we talk and we see where it's going. And that's kind of a nice change of pace, especially for me, because we always have a topic, always are following an outline of one point or another. And so this is, it's a lot of fun just to go off script and say, hey, this is what's going on,
So do you have a team? I know on your website, there's 3 other people. Who are they?
So my wife does so we travel some, more than a little. We do a lot of live shows. We do a lot of travel. We do festivals, stuff like that. I just got back from Alien Con was in LA. So we do that. And my wife, she just handles our email and stuff like that. We do have an employee. He's Assistant Ray, if you ever see him online. His name's Raymond Walden. He lives here we live right outside of Chicago, or I do, in Berwyn. And he's local. Yeah, I ran into this guy who happened to know the show. He's got a degree in history. And I was like, are you looking for a gig? And he's like, yeah. So he does research for us. And that's been going really well. He helps pick topics and, do background for us and sends us notes for when we send him a list of what we're going to have for outline, what we're going to do outlines on. And he kind of fleshes stuff out for us. And when I travel, he carries stuff. So that's
a bonus.
Awesome.
That's a bonus.
Yeah. So I can't complain. But yeah, so that was like one of our nice little perk things, when we could actually hire someone. I felt kind of good about it. My wife is a glorified free worker. She just handles that stuff and travel and stuff for us. So I like to tell people that she's my my secretary of executive assistant, but she would kick me if she heard me saying that. So yeah.
So this is a full-time gig for you now.
Yeah. So nice. I've been podcasting full time for about 2 years now.
Cool.
And we started out just as an indie show, and then we got on a couple networks, and now, as of I think it officially in November, we signed with How Stuff Works, and now they're actually a iHeartMedia show. So we are an iHeartMedia show now. So we are on the iHeartRadio network.
So just so everybody knows that we are sharing a common denominator. We have a common background. You are a UFO enthusiast, because we're going to get there, but we're going to talk about talk about podcasting first. But I know everybody's waiting. It's like, what is this guy doing? We want to hear about UFOs and aliens. But other than everywhere, so you guys, you're on iHeartRadio, but everywhere else, right?
Everywhere. We're on Pandora and Spotify, Castbox, everywhere. The iHeartRadio app. Ding! See, I made a quarter now. Right. We're everywhere, so you can find us. And if you can't remember any of that, the show is Hysteria 51, and you can just go to hysteria51.com.
So it's funny because I was looking you up last night, and so I just Googled Hysteria 51 and podcast. And of course, it came up with a whole bunch of podcast apps, like 20 that I'd never even heard of. So I started putting in My Alien Life podcast, and they picked that up from Apple, from iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
And, everything's on all these apps and they're everywhere. I've never heard of any of these. And it's just, if you took a podcast or pod or something and just any other word and they made an app or a website where you can listen to podcasts. So
it's just funny. There's so many of them out there and I don't know how people, choose them. I fall into the one. Exactly. You hear about it or one doesn't do what you like and you switch it up, but you'd think thered be 3 or 4 and that's probably all you really need.
And it's just it's a big vehicle for advertisement. I mean, all it is, your podcast is kind of squeezed right there in the middle. It's totally surrounded by horrible advertising, but
absolutely. That's it all. Money's the common denominator. Right. Always.
So describe your podcast here for everybody who's listening.
Yeah. So we are absolutely. So we are a weekly show. We release new episodes every Monday. We do talk conspiracies and aliens and the occult and anything on the weird spectrum, but we are a comedy show. So that is first and foremost, we're having fun. We're talking about it. John is the very skeptic of us, but that doesn't mean that he's, a complete naysayer. I'm the more open-minded, but every week we have a topic and we've done everything from, Bob Lazar and Area 51 to the end of the world, the Fermi paradox. Are we living in a matrix? Ghosts and Spring Hill Jack and cryptids and everything along the line. So we've just been having a blast. And actually, we just and we're always ahead of you, but we're around episode 150 right now. About 150 episodes.
So is it an hour long? 2 hours?
Well, you know what? It's not so completely structured. We shoot for an hour. Sometimes it's 50 minutes. Sometimes it's 90. If I think it's going to be a 90-minute episode, a lot of times we'll do a 2-parter. We try not to do too many 2-parters. We try to bring them in, as one. But, sometimes, and we are, like I said, I always try to tell people we are a comedy show. We like to have some fun with these topics and give them, a little bit of a chuckle while we're doing it. Some of them you can't do that as well, and so we don't touch them. But others are important, like Jonestown. We did a 2-parter on Jonestown. We're not going to make fun of death, but we are going to make fun of, the idiots that were involved and stuff like that, but first and foremost, a lot of people come up and say, well, why haven't you done an episode on 9/11 or stuff like that? And, at the end of the day, we're making fun and we're telling jokes and we don't want to go down those avenues with some of those topics. And there's so much out there that's fun to do, but in doing the show, so it's kind of funny because we wanted to do the show. I'll tell you a little backstory. So John and I, we grew up together. We always wanted to have a radio show. When we were in college, we always talked about, let's have a radio show. And when we went to college, we were going to do it. And then time gets a hold of you and you're doing other things and you never get to do it. Well, then you fast forward and we always talked about it and podcasting becomes a thing. So we started talking for a long time. We should try a show. And then you heard that whole story of how we got into it.
Back when I was in high school, I was a junior in high school, and my best friend, his dad went to an auction and bought 90 minutes of radio time on a radio station to do whatever he wanted. Wow. So me and 3 friends did that, and we messed around for like 90 minutes. And then not even a year, maybe 4 or 5 months later, I ended up working at the radio station and all through college. Yeah.
Well, I really thought I was going to. And in high school, I job shadowed and interned at a local radio station. And, though I was on for the afternoon drive, so that was very boring because we just played music, right. And took the occasional call. But I really enjoyed it, but I didn't think that's per se what I wanted to do, and I'm glad I waited. I'm glad I went the route I did, and now I'm doing something I absolutely love. But in doing this show, so in doing it and doing the research, we really try to, I say we joke about the stuff, but we research a lot, and I usually read a book or two on every topic, which kills my wife because we have a growing, my big fear is that something happens to me and they come in to go through stuff and they see my library of books and they're like, what the hell was wrong with this guy? Because there's just out there, some of the stuff. And so I've done so much research that I started getting and talking to people that are involved in, the actual names of, that people are involved. I've talked to, Travis Walton and Nick Pope. I don't know if you're familiar with people like that, and Jeremy Corbell and Stanton Friedman and people, and they were very approachable. Ryan Sprague and a lot of people, and we've done shows with these people, and we've had them on as guests and things like that. And you realize, like, kind of a closer knit group than I realized, the people that are out there talking about this stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that I believe a lot of the stuff that they say. There's Ancient Aliens and Gaia and stuff out there that is out there, and that's not to say you can believe it or you don't believe with everything. And I say take every different episode and choose wisely on it and make up your own mind. But it's just fun. I never thought, a few years ago that I would be, doing this and talking with these people and doing the stuff that I was watching on TV and just staring at with wonder. So yeah, it's been a blast.
It's a breath of fresh air for me, because it's basically you're free to do whatever you want. And coming where I came from, and at one time in my life, I thought I might do radio, but I mean, I used to work with, honestly, I was making $7 an hour, and this was a long time ago. And they would have people come in who would work there, full-time people. They'd make a salary, and they were making less than $7 an hour. And this is in the 80s, and I was like, wow, I can't do this. And so coming several, couple decades forward and actually doing this like you and I are doing it right now, right. It's so different and it's so refreshing, and back then it was like, being on the Central Iowa Ag Report at 4:45 a.m. in the morning, that was kind of the style that was the style of radio back then, where I grew up, especially. Yeah. So, so what are some big mistakes you guys made at first? What happened? What'd that look like in the early year?
So when we first started, I told you, we threw a phone in front of us and we're like, we're not going to do that. Right. We're going to, and you don't have to spend a lot of money, but we did no soundproofing or anything. We bought the cheapest mics we could and we started recording, and I cringe now when I go back and I listen to some of those because they sound so bad. Yeah. And I would never tell anyone to go out and spend a ton of money because you don't need to. And that's a perfectly fine way to start out. But then I had to buy everything again. And we ended up building a studio in 2017. Yeah, 2017, we built a studio here in Berwyn and finished and air conditioned and soundproofed. And and that's our main studio. And I wish I knew then what I know now as far as, you don't have to spend as much as you think you do. And the thing people love to you go into groups when you want to start doing a podcast, whether it's no matter what it is, and they're telling you this is crap or that's crap because it doesn't cost as much as maybe what they paid.
Right. Absolutely.
You want to get what sounds good. You want to start and start doing it, because the important stuff, the money that we really spend our money on is travel and things like that. We do a lot of on location stuff and it adds up, Right. We've been all over the place, I'm sure everyone's watching their pennies and counting their pennies as they're getting ready to travel to Area 51 to rate it here pretty soon. So,
I'll be there for that. But
you're gonna be treated with now. They're planning a huge festival with like 4 bands and camping out and food truck.
Yeah, cool. But I think you don't believe everything you see about podcasting. I mean, if you looked on Facebook and you look at certain podcasters, and I'm not going to say who, you would actually believe that every one of them have a red brick studio with some loft somewhere in New York City, and it's not really that way.
Yeah, it's not at all. If you're a celebrity, sure, someone's going to hire you. And you're automatically going to get downloads. But otherwise, you got to hustle and you got to work and you got to, I told you I went on that podcast cruise. I got some of the worst information, or someone's like, I got to, I'll tell you how it is, kid, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, he's like, enjoy doing what you're doing, but make sure you realize it's a hobby because you'll never make a dime doing it.
Right.
Because you don't have product. See, I'm selling like a real estate course or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And he's like, that's how you make money. So as long as you're going to fail, you're fine. I'm like, cool. Well, now, it's 3 years later, this is my
Thanks for
my
the
life.
pep
And
talk.
yeah, and I always look at that as some of the best advice I got because I laughed at it. You know what I mean? And I was like, no. And no one should ever go into anything thinking I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to be an actor, or, I'm going to do this and then the other. But, you should at least go out and try to do what you want to do and have fun with it. And if something comes of it, yay, and if not, well, I hope you are having fun, and that's fine. But don't poo-poo on someone's,
Right.
livelihood they're doing when you don't even really understand.
And everybody's here really to have fun. It's like they really want to get into it and get together. They initially, I know everybody kind of thinks of it as this networking thing, and they're going to sit down and they're going to talk to people, and it's going to go really well initially. And everybody is really enthusiastic at first. And of course you get to the point where all of a sudden, the fun isn't so much fun, and it becomes a lot of work, and you got to start selling that brand, and you got to promo it like constantly. And I'm talking about 7 days a week from morning until you go to bed at night.
Well, it's funny. You were talking to me the other day. You're like, I posted in like 20 some different threads or something like that. You have to.
Yep.
You have to. And that isn't. I don't care if you're doing a podcast or you're selling essential oil.
Right. Exactly.
Whatever the kids are doing these days. You know what I mean? Like you got to be out there hustling. And making sure. Like I said, we did so much travel, and we still do. Getting in front of people and doing live shows and doing events and. The proverbial shaking hands and kissing babies. You got to go out and do it, because out of sight, out of mind. That's at least the way I look at it. I know John does too. So it's worked for us. Doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone, but that worked for us. So, we've stuck with it.
What piece of podcasting equipment do you own that you love more than any other?
A limiter gate. I don't know if you've ever heard of a limiter gate, but so, of course you have, right? But, we have the air conditioning in here. I can run the air. I can run everything. My dogs can be downstairs and barking. Even though you can't really hear them in here, it cuts everything out.
Right.
That was one thing that made a big difference in our sound, as far as really cleaning everything up. And it's not an expensive piece. But I even think that more important than, once you get into big microphones, you can spend as much or as little as you want on a microphone, and there is a lot of differences, but a lot of them sound good, and get clean audio going into them and are coming out of them, and you'll be set. So that was mine. That's my favorite.
I have a Rodecaster Pro, and it has that capability, and I probably don't use it to its full potential, but
we just bought one of those.
Yeah. It does that
for John's place. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to learn it. It's a fun piece, man. We were excited when it came out.
There's about 3 things that it's missing. I would love to be able to record right onto my computer with it, a little bit more user friendly ish. And there's a few things, there's some quirks. I always tell everybody I want it to make my voice sound like I've been smoking and drinking whiskey in a basement bar for the last 30 years, but it doesn't do that. So
yeah, right. Yeah. Yep.
So you guys,
no, go ahead.
You guys get together now and do you initially write this thing separately and then you get together and collaborate later, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I write the outline. Now, we don't write it. We don't script it out. That we definitely off the cuff, but we do bullet points because otherwise I get lost. So I like that. So I will pick a topic. We get a lot of topics that are sent to us. We pick a lot on our own, things like that. We actually have a lot of people that reach out to us, authors or people that have done, documentaries, things like that. We should Jeremy Corbell on. He reached out to us. He did the Bob Lazar documentary that came out real recently. You can watch it on Netflix. And so people like that, they do it. We'll write an outline or some questions we want to have. Like I said, I send those to John, and he kind of gives it the once over. And then we don't talk about it pre. That's one thing we try not to do, because you start talking and then I tell him what I'm thinking and he disagrees. And then you can kind of start changing your opinion sometimes, or if you know what they're going to say. So we try to just have the outline and not give our opinions in it so that we can tell the story And that's what we do is we tell a story every week. We're going to tell you that from A to B. Now, the thing that we do that a lot of people don't, I'll tell you if I believe it or not. He will too. I'll tell you if I think it's BS or I think it's absolutely true. So will he, and some people love that. Some people hate that about us. But hey, it's what we do.
When you guys are traveling, what do you target? I mean, what are you looking for out there to attend? Because some of those, there are more regional and smaller UFO conventions and things like that are popping up all the time. How do you decide?
Well, you know what? It's been we've been lucky enough to be invited to several. We've been to Kansas City Paracon several times. That's I don't know if you've ever heard of the Ectoplasm Show, but one of the guys that puts that on, Jason Kupsik, he does that. That's been great. We go out and we do panels there. Speaking of Kansas City, their Planet ComiCon has had us out every year for a few years. We do panels there. We did 10 of them. 2 of them. I'm fluffing my numbers. 2 of them earlier this year at they're talking about paranormal and podcasting and paranormal, and the whole gamut of all of that. And then Alien Con, we were just in LA. Dallas is coming up. We do panels there. You just try to pick the ones that are big, that seem to be legit. Like you said, there's so many. And we don't have the time or the bandwidth, the money, to go to everything and everywhere. We also try to travel to go to locations. We've went to the Winchester Mansion, and we've went to the Queen Mary ship, and we've been to Alcatraz, and those were all on California trips. And we've been to Georgia, the Georgia Guidestones, and we've done episodes on Area 51, and we went to the gates of Area 51, and we've been to a lot of places doing stuff like that. We've been to Mexico, and we've been to Jamaica, and just all these places getting ready to do episodes. And I just look for something that I think is going to be fun, like a story that's fun, an idea that's fun, because at the end of the day, we're trying to do a show that we enjoy. And, hopefully that goes out and becomes something that other people enjoy too, because that's the goal. But we set out to do a show like, hey, I think I would enjoy this. So that's how we do it. And we try to do a show that we would like listening to.
I've been to a few and they're fun. But what I really, really love and just it reminded me when I was coming home today and to get ready for this was I had a couple people texting me, and I put up a thread on Facebook, and, all of a sudden people start texting you these incredible stories. And they just blow your mind, It's like, oh my God,
right.
You got to be kidding, So like literally about 5 minutes before I called you tonight, this guy had thrown this story at me, and it was a long paragraph in Messenger. And I was like, I'm going to get a hold of you in a couple hours, buddy. Mm-hmm. I want to hear more about that. And it happens all the time.
I just talked with Derek Hayes. Derek Hayes hosts Monsters Among Us, and I was on a panel with him recently. And his show is a call-in show. Like they call in and people tell him their stories. And he was talking about, just how crazy some of the stories are. And the other thing he talked about is how it's odd that they'll get the same story from different people.
Yes.
And he's like, I know these people aren't talking per se. I guess he doesn't know that, but it might be 6 months, a year, 2 years, and they're telling almost the same story. Like they've had similar incidents, and that's spooky in and of itself, It's also anonymity when people can call in and do stuff like that. It's people are more apt to maybe want to tell you their story because you take some of the judgment out. You know what I mean? As far as I could do this, and if you laugh at me, that's fine. You're not doing it to my face. We've talked to a friend of ours, N.K. Cranda. She works for MUFON, and she's an experiencer. Archivist. She goes and she talks to people, and if you've had an experience, it doesn't have to just be with aliens. If you've had a paranormal experience, ghosts, missing time, men, and anything that's happened to you, you can tell her, and she records them. And she's not recording it trying to prove you or debunk you. She's just recording it. So maybe in the future we realize that aliens are X, Y, and Z. Well, they can go back and they can look through these archives and say, well, okay, well, these match up with that. Or let's say ghosts are interdimensional. We just don't realize it. Something like that. It's just a thin place and they're bumping the wall there and we're seeing things, Well, maybe in the future they'll be able to do that. And I like that. And it also, you can do stuff with them, with her. That's also, if you don't want to give your information, you do it anonymously. And when they're not judging and you can just come forward and say these things, I think it's really good for people, even if it's just to get something off your chest or to tell a story and lie and have fun. Because I'm sure that happens
Absolutely.
a lot too.
I think I have 4 episodes right at the beginning, right when I first started, and I'm telling my own personal experiences. And the cool thing about that was, I literally, as soon as it was on, I had people texting me, and there was one guy I remember in particular. He was like, was this alien wearing this? And I was like, wow, no way, because I blew his mind bad, and then he just blew my mind right back. So that's where the cool part comes in, because there's people out there who see things and do things and experience things and they know. So what is that? So what's your fascination with paranormal, and what really interests you and keeps you wanting more?
I told you I grew up in the country in the middle of nowhere. We grew up the edge of my property, just a few hundred feet from my house was a graveyard. So I grew up with that, and we had things happen in my house when I was young that weren't explained. And I grew up very scared, unfortunately, of my house and things like that.
Me too.
But fascinated with it, and I never stopped being fascinated by it. And then when I was in college, I started, being interested in the UFOs and reading, and I actually saw something at the time that I thought was a UFO. Now, UFO does not mean alien. UFO just means an unidentified flying object. Later, I realized what it was, which was a ramjet engine. It looked like donuts on a rope, and it was at nighttime, and it was lit up because of the lights on the plane, which was some sort of black aircraft. Black is in a black project, because ramjets are still classified. But I was just so fascinated with it. I tried to figure out, what it was, and I started looking into it, and my whole adult life, my dad and I would talk about these things, and I started reading books, stuff by Jim Mars and stuff by Eric Von Daniken, and you can like him or hate him, a lot of that stuff. But I really started reading everything I could, just really enjoying that stuff. I was a big Jim Mars fan, and just digesting as much as I could. And then when this podcasting thing came up and John and I were talking, I'm like, that's what we need to do. He's like, well, I'm very skeptical about this. I'm like, perfect.
There you go.
And I'm not saying that I'm not, and it's kind of funny, as we started out, I was probably less skeptical and he was more. And 3 years in, we've met in the middle in a lot of ways. He's found a lot of things that he was like, I can't really explain that. And I found a lot of them are like, this is complete BS, which is what he expected and what I expected on his end. You know what I mean? So we've kind of met in the middle more. And that was really surprising. And it's funny because I haven't lost my love for it. I haven't lost my passion for going out and researching and wanting to know. And the problem, I don't know if it's a problem, but the fascinating thing to me is I don't know. We don't know, for one way or another. Like you said, there are people that have had these experiences and they know for sure, but we don't know the big picture. And I think it's that wanting. Maybe it's I'm not narcissistic, but I'm wanting to be more important than I am because I want to know these things. But I just I love researching it. I love figuring it out. I love hearing people's stories. I love calling BS when I think something's BS, and saying I really believe someone when I'm not. And it's a different experience when you go and you meet people. I just talked with Travis Walton. A lot of people are probably familiar with him. Fire in the Sky. I met with him a couple weeks ago. It's a whole different story when you're looking someone in the face and they're telling you, yeah, this happened or that happened, and it really humanizes an experience for you and makes everything a little bit different in a good way or a bad way, I guess, if you don't believe them.
It's very different. And I think if you actually admit that you're a narcissist, you're not really a narcissist.
Right. I want to be important enough to have to know these
narcissist.
things.
So
That's right.
is there something that you absolutely are opinionated about and believe in so strongly that it drives you crazy when you hear other people talk about it? And I'm talking about anything paranormal.
I mean, I don't know if there's anything that is just makes me, I don't like when people say that the government it doesn't lie to us and things like that, because they do. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist. Like, I'm not Alex Jones. I'm not a Pizzagate person. I'm not all these things. But, look at the assassination of JFK and Martin Luther King, things like this that, the House Committee on Assassinations came out and said, yeah, this is a conspiracy. People forget that. I don't even remember learning that in school. I didn't learn that, until I was an adult, and it makes me mad that people kind of stick their heads in the sand. Even when this stuff, like if you've been watching, of course you have the Nimitz and ATIP and To the Stars Academy, and all this stuff comes out and it gets coverage on national and worldwide media. People go, yeah. And that's kind of how I expected people to react, because people just don't get phased from their day-to-day activities. And people say, well, if we knew, it would cause mass panic. I don't know if it would. I think we're at a point now where we've been so desensitized to it that people just expect these things. And that's what makes me the most mad, I think, is just people who bury their head in the sand and just go, no, I don't believe anything. The government's good for me, and I don't want to question anything, and I'll stick to my guns. And I think as time goes by and new generations come in, that's kind of gone by the wayside, for better or for worse at times. But I think that needs to happen.
I absolutely believe, though, that disinformation is a tool. I mean, it can be a tool, and it's and
it's not always a bad thing.
No, but I think that the government is capable of that, and they would really have to be careful about what they do, because it is prevalent. It can be very believable, and I'm not speaking on any certain conspiracy, but I mean, it's happened, and we're still living with repercussions and maybe a division amongst us because of things like that.
Right. Well, so one of my favorite things to hate, that's a weird thing to say. Yeah, in the late 80s, a guy named Paul Benowitz was a big UFO guy, and he I just had Rick Doty on, right? And he's on.
Oh my God! For the final half tomorrow night.
That's right. I saw that too. Yeah, you're right. I was going to tell the Richard Doty story, so never mind.
Go ahead. It, but I want to hear what you think about that.
Richard Doty was that government spook who came in and said, they told him, if Paul Benowitz wants to see aliens, give him aliens.
Right.
And they manufactured on a plane crash to be aliens, and they lied to him. And
let me just say this. This is one thing that I cannot figure out about that story. He already believed in aliens. Why more?
Right.
Why more? I mean, it's just like,
that was over aliens, the top. Give him aliens. Yeah, right.
It was way over the top.
He went crazy. He died crazy. He went insane. Mm-hmm. And I always just use that as the story of like, well, that's kind of, an example of what we will do.
Right.
Now I'm sure Richard Doty has his version of the story, and I'm very excited to listen. I saw you had part 1 out, so absolutely.
But the thing there, what's amazing to me is that there's so much there, and when he agreed to do it, I was like, where do you even start? Where do you end? I mean, this could go on for days, I mean, obviously we had, I said, we'll do a 2-hour, and we did. But there, the questions I had pages of stuff, right there in front of me, and going back and forth, and I'm crossing things out and frantically trying to, keep it within 2 hours, but keep all the real pertinent and real topics and the things that I know people are going to want to hear. It was tough, man.
It is, and, looking at that situation and looking what was done there, I worry that something very similar to that is happening again with TTSA. I don't know if, and this is not always a popular opinion, I don't know if Tom DeLonge is another Paul Benowitz, or if he's along for the ride and knows it. I worry about those things. And a lot of the Nimitz case and the Tic Tac and things like that are going on, they're in the news because To the Stars Academy is pushing that narrative, and they're pushing out that right. information, and the news is biting. So always don't forget where the news comes from. It's coming from somewhere. And so that's what makes me sometimes worry about things like that. Maybe I'm more skeptical than I should be, or maybe I'm not skeptical enough, but I worry about stuff like that, and man, yeah, I worry about Richard Doty effect, coming back, not to use him as like a verb, but yeah, it's a crazy thing, and the government is not above it.
The documentary he's in is incredible. It's called Mirage Men.
Yeah.
It's like I started, I thought, well, this will be a good prep for this show. And I had more questions and more confusion watching that once and then watching it twice. I mean, tenfold. It was unbelievable. There is so much that they throw at you in that movie. And in bits and pieces that aren't finished. And then you go online and you try to read more about it. It's crazy. So, I can't even remember the quote that I had, but, what it came down to was disinformation has to have so many different layers. I mean, it's, you could have 10 layers of disinformation and they keep just piling it on to the point where all of a sudden everybody is questioning everything. I mean, they had facts 3 weeks ago. Now they're questioning those facts, and their facts aren't facts anymore. And it's just amazing how layered and how repetitious it is. And I don't. Yeah,
and someone is orchestrating this. Someone's pulling the string. Someone's doing it, and that's what to me, at least, that's happening. And that's just fascinating that people have the wherewithal to play the populace and such, like, it's a game. It really is, for whatever reason, they're doing it to throw off a scent of pick your poison, insert crazy conspiracy or story or not, but it's done for a reason. One way or another.
I just hope it doesn't get to a point where the next time they just know that it's that much easier to fool us. I mean, we fooled you now. We're going to fool you again. We're going to fool you.
Well,
again.
Yeah.
So,
and how do you know what's, I don't know if it's like today, I'm watching the news and everyone's using that face app and making themselves older.
I know.
And then the news comes out today, it's a Russian app and they're mining your photos. And it's like literally a Russian government, like installment. I'm like, oh my God, like, how do you even do anything anymore? People are like, well, how do you have an Alexa in your house? Well, you got a phone in your pocket, and it's the same difference. You know what I mean? Like, it's a crazy world that we live in, and privacy is an illusion in a lot of ways.
Doesn't exist.
Anymore.
And I think the whole Alexa thing came out, and now we're not that concerned about it anymore. We laugh about it, and what's next? So what are some of your favorite conspiracy theories out there? Or some of them that you really dig?
JFK was a fun one just because it was not a fun one. But just the rabbit hole that you go down. We did a lot of work on that one, and it opens up a lot of questions more than get answered. I really enjoy talking about Bob Lazar. I do not believe Bob Lazar. But that's been a fun one, and it really makes a lot of people enjoy that story.
Why don't you believe Bob Lazar? I mean, other than the obvious reasons that there's nothing on paper that shows any of what he says is true.
So there's so many questions, and his mother wouldn't say yes or no. And I asked Jeremy Corbell, I said, what about his background? What about, he goes, well, let's just say, okay, so you can't prove it. So say it's wrong. He lied about that. Let's just say, that's not true. He didn't, but let's just say he lied about that. But does that really matter? Yes, it does. It does to me. And that's the narrative that they push. Like, but does it really matter? And that's what he kept saying. That's what George Knapp has said. Like, And George Knapp's also said, well, these guys remember them, and you can go and read, what the people actually said and what, Lear has said about Bob Lazar and what he was really doing at Los Alamos. I don't know. It's just a fun story to try to dissect. He does know a lot of stuff, though, that he shouldn't know. How do you know? How did he know they were going to be flying this stuff? How did he know about this and that? Which makes you wonder again, was this all, some sort of a psyop? Who knows? I don't know. But that's been one that I've really enjoyed. The other thing, and I'm sure you've seen this as you do, more and more alien stuff, is just these through lines. They all have similar, functions and facts and things, and Nazis come up in more of them than I ever would have thought of. It's like, dang,
they don't deserve any credit beyond the atrocities in Germany.
Yeah,
just, come on.
And you pick a story that it sounds fake. I'm not going to name a bunch, but you pick one. I guarantee you Nazis are in there and this and that and the other, and you're just like, oh my god, like someone came up with a conspiracy theory 101. We have to check off these boxes if you're going to make the story stick. And as we research them, just so many are in that realm, and it's like, oh my gosh, But the aliens are my bread and butter. That's the whole stories, the what ifs out there have been a lot of fun. But another one I really liked doing was Montauk. That was a lot of fun. I don't know if you've ever looked into Montauk. The Montauk monster and the Montauk chair. It's crazy old bastards that had propagated the story that were just disgusting slime. They were using it, and they were pedophiles, unfortunately. And but you look at these stories and you're like, holy cow, like how did anyone ever even come up with this stuff? But then you go to Montauk, they go there, and sure as shit, there's stuff underground and it's all sealed up. And you're like, well, what was going on?
It?
Yeah, there's always these little like you want to write off everything because, and that happens. Loonies come out, crazy, whatever you want to call it, or people that are seeking attention, and they grab onto these stories. But there are breadcrumbs that are true, or at least lead you towards like something else was going on. So that's crazy. I like that stuff when you're like, oh man, I just don't know. I don't know. But I don't believe in electric Sasquatch or the Montauk chair, unfortunately.
Yeah. You'd brought up the U.S. military report and the telemetry showing the Tic Tac and the UFOs. And, one of the things that I know is that I have a good memory for that kind of thing. And, I was like, I've seen that. It's been a while and I've heard about it. And, this popped up back and Art Bell has a show about it. And I was jogging one night and I was listening to Art Bell and some of these there's a website where it has all his shows that you can listen to for free. And it was in 2003. And that's what he was talking about. He was talking about telemetry that was with the U.S. Navy had taken with their radar and they were looking at UFOs. And I don't remember who was on the show that night, but they were talking about how disclosure, is near. It's like within the next year, we're going to have disclosure,
right.
And
they're going to have to. Yeah.
We're going to have to. And, to me that it just pops up. So why did it pop up now? What's happening now that this needs to be a big deal all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But there's not much
behind the other hand when that's the hand giving us.
Because, and it's not like they gave a whole lot. I mean, they're just threw a tidbit out there and there it is.
Right. Yeah. It's, classic deception. It's like The Magician. Looking over here, I'm not really doing this over here,
Right.
I'm doing it so you're not looking over there. A lot of times.
And if they have a minute and 32-second telemetry video that they're willing to put on the internet, they have, or on the news, they have hundreds or thousands of hours. So, or maybe they don't have any. I don't know, but
they've got that thing in color. You know what I mean? They have so many cameras on those ships. Those F-18s. They've got other pictures that would answer a lot of questions that are just classified or above our pay grade. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I have been told that by former military people about that exact case. So take that for what you want, but they say, oh yeah, they have the there's no way they don't, you know what I mean? So
what about Bigfoot? Where are you at on that one?
I don't know. There's a lot of people that see things. I think that I talk about this with my wife. You see things in your mind, fills in the blanks. Now that's not to say that that's not, every case of Bigfoot. I think there are some credible things out there, but for a breeding size populace of a great ape like that to be out there, it would be very hard to hide.
That's a good point.
And it would have to be a breeding size populace, for it to do, even forget like, oh, we don't find bodies or this and the other. Well, you know what? There's animals all the time that, go extinct and then we find them again because they weren't really extinct. But that's a little harder to swallow. And I don't believe, I believe a lot of people that say what they saw really think they saw what they saw. Jane Goodall believed that it was possible, that's kind of a crazy thing, but she did, but I think, especially in, every state that they say they see it in, I don't believe it. The Yeti would be much more, if something lived in ultra high altitude that just avoids, that's something I could maybe buy into a lot more. Again, though, there's no proof of that either. Yeah,
I think Jane Goodall had some other problems there because she spent a lot of time alone, but she wrote some good stuff. She was amazing, and my background's anthropology, and so I think that she's pretty cool.
So where do you fall at on that?
You know what? I live in the Rocky Mountains. I live in the woods, and honestly, I must not believe it, because if I absolutely believed it, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be living amongst these things. To me, it's that I remember. I don't even remember what year it was, but there was a big screen movie, Bigfoot, and I went to that. And I just remember these loggers. It showed these loggers on this logging road up in the mountains somewhere, and all of a sudden these big boulders started crashing down all around them, and they took off running, and then they went back to their camp, and they're sleeping that night, and the Sasquatch showed up and started throwing these boulders at the cabin. And I was like, wow. I mean, that was like growing up in the middle of nowhere out on the prairie, and then finally moving to the mountains.
I tell you what, there's nothing darker and scarier than, going and watching a scary movie, or you're talking about that stuff with friends. And then you come home like, I live out in the middle of nowhere. There's no lights. There's no street signs, anything like that. And you get home and you got to like go through a cemetery to get to your house, and it's a long walk into the house from outside when that crap's on your mind, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then nothing happens, you know what I mean? But you start playing tricks on yourself, going, oh man, I'm gonna see something.
How about demons, demonology, exorcism, poltergeists?
You know what? I am a Christian, and I do believe that stuff. Poltergeist is something, I don't know, man. They say that manifests from people. Like normally, that's like women, girls that are doing that. That I don't know. I do. I have had experiences that I cannot explain. I am a 100% believer in something. As far as ghosts and demons and exorcisms, I think a lot of that stuff is probably blamed on it when it's not, but I'm not going to say that it's not possible.
I had a guy, a really, really interesting podcast, and he was an exorcist for the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And the knowledge that he had, I mean, he's throwing things at me that I've never heard of, that I didn't know about. And I was really blown away. And this is the honest truth. I'm in the house, I'm doing the podcast, and I didn't, it was like 9:00 at night, 9:30, almost 10. And the house was getting dark. I didn't turn any lights on. Well, I couldn't get up while I'm doing this to turn lights on. The whole house is getting dark around me, and it's just getting creepier and creepier.
Right.
And it's just really affecting me at that point, And
right.
I mean, this guy is the real deal, and he's done it and he's seen it, and you can't deny that. And when he goes, it's because somebody is already done an evaluation. He evaluates the situation first, and he, evaluates it, and it is what it is. So they go and they do it because, they, without a doubt, that's what's going to happen. And the difference there is from what you see on TV or hear about or read about, they go back, because he said, if you don't go back like every 4 months or 3 months or, periodically, those demons, they're comfortable there. That's their place. And they just come back. And I said, and he's telling me things that I didn't know. So you take what I already knew, which was scary enough, and then you add this stuff, and it was crazy, man. It was like, wow.
You do believe in that stuff, and then you hear that, and it makes you wonder, like, am I opening myself up to stuff? Is this a bad thing? Is this a good thing? Right. The problem is, I think, with your average Tom, Dick, and Harry is, if it didn't happen to them, they're not going to believe it. And that goes for, it could be your best friend, your partner, it's easier just to not believe things. And it's hard pill to swallow when someone's telling you, no, something fantastic is, for lack of a better word, has happened to me. It's not always fantastic. It might be frightening and terrifying. When stuff like that happens, it's easier just to dismiss it, because then you don't have to actually ask yourself, are these things out there? Could it happen? Could it be? Is there science behind it? Is it something that we can recreate? And that's something that we, that I enjoy talking about and trying to do, and I'm fortunate enough that I do that, kind of day after day. And so do you. It's just a fascinating thing, seeing all the walks of life and the crazy stories. Crazy as in just, not crazy as in you're loony. Crazy as in they're just so out there stories and that people have gone through, be it, like you said, ghosts and demons or, aliens or anything. I love it. I love that it's
a lot of stuff though. I mean, we have, we can't get enough. We're creating things all the time. We have skinwalkers, and we have chupacabra, and we have, it's just, there's always something new. Not that that's new, but there is stuff that pops up and it's new.
And there are things that are the soup of the day. Right now it's aliens, and a few years ago vampires were hot. And
I forgot about
Skinwalker Ranch, were huge. And it's funny how things go through seasons almost. Like that's the monster of the week almost. Now right now it's alien fever, and a few years ago you couldn't turn on television without there be 19 haunted and engaged,
Yeah, a lot of ghost
haunted
hunters.
and alone, haunted and with my family. Who knows? You know what I mean? There's just so many, and some are great and some weren't. But and a lot of them are still on. And it just, people go through phases. So
what about Area 51? Are you going September 20th?
No.
Come on.
No, I've been there.
Come on.
I've been there. I've been to, you know what? So it's so funny. So I watched the guy, Matty Roberts, I think his name was. It's Matty something, the guy who created the event. And he's like, I made it as a joke. He goes, when it hit 500,000 people, he goes, I literally started worrying. George Knapp interview.
I would have thrown up.
He goes, I was waiting for the FBI to come just to talk to me at least. He goes, because I thought they were going to, like, inciting a riot or something like that. And here's the thing. So you go out there, and the little alien actually has secured off 30 acres. And the guy, not that owns the little alien, but the shop as you're going out towards Area 51, it's that Kwanzaa hut with the metal alien outside of it. Like the Alien Research Center, they call it, or something like that. It's just you can buy alien, mugs and T-shirts and stuff. Well, he's an entrepreneur from Vegas, and he's putting a music festival out there on the 20th, and it's going to be like a bunch of bands and food and stuff. And people are going to get drunk, and either people are going to die because they shoot themselves, or people are going to go out there and not realize that there's no water, there's no gas in Rachel, Nevada. And we didn't bring water, and they're going to be stranded. It's going to be
somebody could get drunk and go out on the road and cross the line, not even realizing, or go off the road. Wow.
When you go out there, if you're heading from Vegas towards Rachel, right before Rachel, there's like an unmarked spot on the road, and you turn, and I've done it. And it's like 8 miles, something like that. and all of a sudden there's a road, and you're on the road, and you just come up, and that's where that guard shack is.
Right.
The guard shack that everyone sees. That's the front gate or the back gate. I forget which is which. The other gate, there's not much to see other than there's orange, fence posts. There's no fence, but there's markers and the signs that say, don't come in here. It's a military base and lethal force is authorized. There's not a lot to see other than the fact that it's in the middle of nowhere, and it has that whole I'm not supposed to be here feeling.
Right.
But the thing is, if they had anything, let's say Bob Lazar was 100% true and they had all that stuff there, it hasn't been there for a very long time. And the next place that it was at probably isn't even there anymore. You're not going to go get your alien buddy and all their tech, and I believe it is probably just an Air Force test base like it was for a very long time. Whether they did other stuff or not, that's up for debate, and you can fill multiple episodes debating those merits, but I don't believe it is now. You want to see, go to Tonopah down the road, and you can probably see crazier stuff than you're going to see at Area 51.
My thing is, I love that whole area. I love the test range.
Mm-hmm.
I love Area 51. I love Mercury, Nevada. I'm totally into the old, from the 50s to the 70s, test pilots and secret Air Force bases and machines. And that's what I'm really into. So I really, even for me to go up there and see the gates or basically where the road stops or from any vantage point, to me, that's super cool. I love it.
Don't go with like a tour group.
No.
You know what I mean? It's so much more fun, and you can just kind of
right. But yeah, I love that, and so their whole mystique there. It doesn't have to have aliens for me, and I think it's
right.
It's very, very
an awesome
cool.
area. Like I said, it has. As soon as you're out there, you have that feeling of I'm not supposed to be here, And the little alien, excellent burgers and excellent stories. Talk to them. They're there to talk. And it's fun and. Look in there for Hysteria 51 stickers because they're kind of in a few places.
Did you guys just drop some there?
I did not.
Add
some
to
of our
their inventory.
No, cool. So we had a couple of our listeners that went out and did it, and then David Flora, who hosts Blurry Photos, he sent me pictures not so long ago. We have a big sticker of ours is right on their cooler where they have their beer, like right behind the thing. I'm like, hell yeah! I did not bring any to them, and we have a couple on like the extraterrestrial highways, which they probably have to change those all the time. So I don't know if they're still there, but we did for a while.
This is a cool story, but I don't have stickers, but my business card is basically all it has is a white card with my website address on it in the lower left or the lower right-hand corner. So I was going to go to in the South Pacific, and this was in May, and I had to go to Taiwan, and flew from Seattle to Taiwan, and so I had a bunch of business cards with me, and I thought, I can leave these at different places. Well, in the plane, they had a little thing that had soap dispensers. And it was made of wood. It was really nice. Soap dispensers, and then there was a little compartment that had earplugs in there. Well, everybody would go in there and take the earplugs immediately, so it was empty. So I'd put about 100 business cards in there, and it was a perfect business card holder. So I'd go back an hour later, every one of them would be gone. So, when I came back 2 weeks later, I looked and I upload my podcast on podbean.com. I had listeners in South Korea, and I had them in Taiwan, and I had them in Singapore.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Benefit of putting them on there. Yeah.
So, and in Malaysia, people are still listening to it, and on regular basis, I get like every new episode, I get like 25 listeners in Malaysia alone. So it's pretty awesome that was
that's awesome.
Yeah. It was just a little marketing tool there that I came up with.
Yeah.
We talked about Tom DeLonge. So I liked what you had to say, but I wanted to bring this up because I down in my notes, I had another quote there. And I had a friend who worked and still works for MCA Records. And basically, I had, we don't see each other, but we text from time to time. And I just didn't even think about Tom DeLonge. And so then one day I texted her, did you know Blink 182 and were they there? And she said, yeah, and everybody was ready for him to exit, and it was getting very monotonous for them. And that was her quote about that. Yeah. That I think it was a bit much, for everybody around, apparently for them to deal with that. Because in my opinion, now this is just my opinion, and I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers, and I know I will, but I had two friends, and one was a friend and one was a neighbor, but they always had a story, and none of the stories were true. And when they wanted you to believe these outrageous stories of things that they had done, there was no limit. I mean, if it came to it, and if you didn't believe it and you had to listen to it long enough, I mean, pretty soon I'm sure they would have had Congress involved or the Air Force or somebody. It just they had stories that just never
whatever they needed to say. Nothing was awful.
Right. Yeah. And I also see this with certain people who believe in certain phenomena. Now, when they want people to believe, the story just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And, I know people like that, and they're great. Not to say they're not great people, but Tom reminds me so much of these two people that I knew and still know. And it's just amazing to me that it's going where it's going. Now, I don't believe him. I don't believe in what he's saying. I don't believe in who's the guy that Louis can't think of his last name.
Luis Elizondo.
Yeah. And and you brought up the possibility that it could be disinformation. It certainly could. And then when you give these folks that sort of spotlight, it changes things, and things get bigger. I just know that that's happening. And then the other, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't know, with Luis Elizondo, Louis, whatever, he kind of goes by a couple different things, but don't forget, he worked for the CIA, the DIA, he is trained in espionage and counterterrorism and things like that. The kind of guy you would want in a situation like this if you were telling lies or the truth. Make of that what you will, but don't forget, where he's from and his background,
Right.
Whether he is, with the head of, ATIP or not is beside the point. He did work, in clandestine affairs. And so, make of that what you will, I guess.
And I always maintain that I think it's that type of disinformation is important in this way because, during the Cold War, we wanted the Soviets to believe that we had it all, Right. And if they believed we had element 115 back then when they were trying to produce that in a lab, but we already had 500 plus pounds in it, and people in the United States were just carrying it around in their pocket with them. I mean, that's a big
poor
deal.
Guy, he was shot at, and just for coming out and saying these things, and it whether they believe it or not, whether they did or not, it checks a lot of boxes of things that probably would have been used for a psyop, whether they did or not. If not, they said, "Ha ha, that was a good one. We'll use something like that in the future and learn from it, one way or another."
So what do you think will happen to like Alex Jones now that he has been banned from Twitter and he doesn't have these outlets like he used to? What's next? I mean, is that
I don't
putting
know
a
for
cap
him.
on the whole podcasting movement?
He was someone that I think he did so much damage. The things he was saying, as well he should have been. There's freedom of speech, but there's also you're not free of consequences and lying and stuff like he was doing and threatening people. I don't know if he's going to go away. I don't think he will go away, and I think that much like a lot of people that came before him, adversity like this makes his diehard fans go at it even stronger, but I think it's good that he doesn't have the foothold that he has, but there will be another Alex Jones. And I don't even think it'll take that long. People fill those shoes very fast. And so, I think Alex Jones has neutered himself quite a bit. And I don't think he's going to go by the wayside, but he's not ever, I hope will be the name and the burden that he was, because he did a lot of damage.
At times he was pretty damn fun though.
He is fun. That's why he has a huge following, and that's why
right.
Just like this, that turned the freaking frogs gay. Well, guess what? That story actually was true. The chemicals were making them gay. You know what I mean? But it's funny. Like one of the biggest sound bites for him. One of the biggest sound bites for him was true. They were changing genders of frogs and stuff like that. There's specks of truth, and then the billionaire Epstein, right? Who was that just got caught with, sex trafficking children. Well, he was one of the people that said that was going on, whether he knew it or not, or if he was just grasping at straws because things have been said. I don't know. There's always things that he did that could have had really good outcomes. And there's a lot of them, like, the Sandy Hook, bashing the families and giving out their addresses and things like that, kind of sealed his fate in a way or not.
Don't let the truth stand in the way of a good story.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate because there's enough truth out there that's you could have told that. He could have been telling that with his own flair, and he would still got hate, because people don't always like it, but he'd still have his show and be on the air and hawking his, penis powders and growth hormones and stuff. Whatever the hell he's always selling,
I'm really surprised.
Crush the root of them.
One of the funniest things I've seen lately was my son turned me onto this, and Jim Baker has a YouTube channel, and there's a guy who's taken all Jim Baker's every single video on Jim Baker's YouTube channel and just rearranged everything. And it's just the most hilarious thing that you've ever seen in your life.
My gosh.
What he sells these survival buckets. So these big 7-gallon buckets of food, and they make the food on the show, and they have a really nice set. It's a big stage, and it's amazing. And so it's very funny. There are a lot of good things on YouTube. What about Flat Earth?
Oh man. So, funny story. So
have you done a show on that?
Yes. So I got a couple stories on that. We did a Flat Earth roundtable with, I don't know if you know any of the Flat Earth people, but yeah, the name was on purpose. Jaron from Jaronism and David Weiss, people that were like Jaron was one of the main people in that Netflix show Behind the Curve. We had them on. We had a worker from NASA, a worker from SpaceX, and an astrophysicist. And then John and I, and we all sat down and we tried to have a civil discussion. And they just name called and lied and argued and yelled and things like that. And then afterwards, they, attacked us online. And we had a problem where they were taking our audio and we're posting it on their pages, and they would edit it and things like that. And we told them, you can't do that.
Right.
You can't do that. We told you in the beginning, you can't use it. We won't edit what you say. And we didn't. Well, Behind the Curve comes out, and Jaron was running like the YouTube channel that was like, associated with it. And when Behind the Curve comes out, like the fourth time, he puts our audio out, and I contacted YouTube, and they turned his channel off the day after there. So he calls, he emails, freaking out, and like, I'm so sorry, please take it back. I'm like, dude, this is why, like, if it happens again, I let him sweat for like 3 days, and then I removed the strike, and they reinstated his channel. But that's all it's been. It's just a cash grab from those people, and a lot of them tout their, well, I'm a real Christian and all this is fake and this and that and the other. And it's been terrible. And we've had nothing but, bad dealings, because as soon as you start talking to them, and if you put any, we got a scientist on there. He was an astrophysicist who taught in college, and they're like, nope, he's a liar. He's indoctrinated and he's lying to us. Just lies. There's no such thing as gravity. There's no this and that and blah, blah, blah. It was just this disgusting. Every time that we've dealt with them has just not been fun. Probably fun to listen to for some people just because it's so outlandish, And the two people that we have, so I told you we had a worker from NASA and we had a worker from SpaceX. Well, the SpaceX actually works security, and we had him on for a reason. They actually said that SpaceX has no rockets. Everything they do is holograms.
Right.
So he offered to have them on site if they came to Florida. They could physically come and touch the rocket, and then from a safe distance, watch it take off, watch it land. They said no, of course, and then afterwards, like, they had a security guard on. Next thing you know, they were talking on their page, like, next thing you know, have a janitor. No, we had a security guard on for a reason, to offer you, because you said that, you called him a liar, and you said that, but that was their comeback, was like, oh, they had this guy that meant nothing. Well, no, we had him for a very specific reason, and you wouldn't even think about it. So, oh well.
Any compelling evidence that there was not a moon landing?
You know what? I kind of believe. I believe in the moon landing. I don't think that it would have been convenient, to try to beat the Russians there. But I guess we'll know soon enough, because a bunch of people are going to the moon in the next few years. In fact, Elon Musk just said today or yesterday or sometime recently, it will be easier to go to the moon than to try to convince NASA that they have the technology to go to the moon. He goes, I think we can land there in 2 years with people without a question. And, China's going there, and we'll know very soon whether they did or not. But, there's a lot of speculation. I 100% believe that we went to the moon.
How does Elon Musk balance his engineering firm with the notion from time to time that he actually believes that he's living in a matrix? How does he balance those two?
That's a hard thing. I don't know if you do balance it, because he says stuff like that, but then you got people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and other people that are like, well, we can't really say we're not. It's a hard pill to swallow. It kind of makes you feel, significant and insignificant at the same time, and if we are living in a matrix, are we ever going to really know? I don't know.
I think if I was living in the matrix, I wouldn't be wasting all that time trying to build rockets. I don't know. I would,
right.
Maybe I'd be trying to get out of the matrix and maybe make a key or some wire cutters or something. Right.
There was an old episode of Star Trek I always think of when Data was using the holodeck, and he was like, they did books and stuff, and he was doing a Sherlock Holmes, and it was too easy for him, so he turned the settings, like the smartness of whatever you want to call it, up to like the highest level, which was like his level of intelligence. So Moriarty in the thing realized that he was in the holodeck, and saw them leave the holodeck and realizes, okay, well, this isn't real. He takes over the whole ship. And ended up, they trap him in a matrix, thinking that they're letting him go free. And then he's able to explore the universe as his will, but really he's just in this little box, running a program. Who knows? It's like they say when they start breaking down the fabric of space, looking in, there's the same as computer code, and that's coming from people that are a lot smarter than me. So I don't know. But
what about
that's just the way nature works? I don't know.
What about chemtrails?
Man, so I don't think that when you look up, you're not seeing chemtrails as far as like chemicals that are being dumped on us. That's not to say that the U.S. is above doing that. They sprayed chemicals on people in St. Louis. I don't know if you're familiar with in Japan, they had Japanese Unit 731. It was for all intents and purposes, a war crimes unit. They tested gases,
right,
and they did horrible things, just like the Nazis that
exactly.
Joseph Mengele and stuff. They tested on the Mongolians, they tested on the Chinese, they tested on the Russians, the Koreans. And a lot of these people at the end of the war, the U.S. brought them over, and they gave them immunity in exchange for their research, the research they were doing. I mean, they killed thousands of people, and they created, plague fleas, and they gave ticks diseases. And that's been in the news lately. I don't know if you saw, was Lyme disease released from like Plum Island. Well, Plum Island is where they sent all those Japanese scientists, and so, I don't think that chemtrails are what we think of, but are they above testing, they've done it, and we know they have. So
I threw this
scary
thread out there the other day on Facebook that chemtrails is basically a net or an alien repellent. And people were like, whoa, we never heard of that one before, you know?
Right.
So I rode that for a couple of days and just to see where it would go. But yeah, then the chemtrail people came back and they really wanted to squash that.
See, it's funny. Like I don't, chemtrails and contrails people confuse, but don't forget your government has done things like that as far as testing on its people. And that's a disgusting thing. Look at, the Tuskegee Airmen and St. Louis, like I said. And, I think that their Congress is making them come out and say about these if Lyme disease and these ticks could have came from research. And even if they say no, I'm going to find that hard to believe because they brought those scientists over and that's what they were working on when they were in Japan. So I don't know.
What about G5?
I don't know enough about it. And you know what's funny? I spent 13 years in the cellular industry as a technician.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know, people say that it's crazy and we're going to fry it, it's evil. I have kind of just put my head in the sand and buried it and not paid enough attention to it. But man, it's kind of a buzzword, isn't it? And people are worried that it's, death rays and stuff like that. And it's, I don't know. I don't know.
What I worry about, having a 12-year-old is that now every TV in every room is going to be on with Google Chrome or Apple TV, and it'll never get turned off, because we'll have enough bandwidth to do whatever we want.
They used to say, like, don't say that, you'll get a wiretap back in the 50s. Now you say, hey, wiretap, like what's the weather outside,
Right.
And you've got your wiretap in your pocket and things like that. And it's just become a joke now because people just don't care. I've even said it before, well, I'm not doing anything, so they're not going to blah, blah, blah. But you don't know what they use for, facial recognition software so they can figure out things. They do stuff just like this. Hey, we'll de-age you or age you or give you a beard and have fun with this app. Well, they're using it for something. The Russians, they're using it for something. If it's teaching, AI to be able to recognize faces or something like that, there's a reason they need this information. Not a reason anyone needs it, and it's just hard to not think everything's nefarious. That's so sad. But man, if you go down those roads and really start picking apart, it's easy to go, man, we're living in a scary time. But I think they've said that since,
for a very long time, since time began.
Yep, absolutely.
I think, one thing that really disappointed me, and I hate bringing up 9/11, but I was thinking back then that we had technology, to possibly prevent that. And it seemed like we actually have a White House today because of, a fluke, and
right.
One of the plans didn't go off as well as it could have. So to me, I was just always certain that there was something that could have been done about that, and what it would be, what that would look like. I've never heard anybody come up with anything decent. I don't know.
Yeah, it's such a thing. I was a senior in college when that happened, and I remember it like yesterday, as far as what happened and just what impact it had. And you look back on it with hindsight 2020, and you look and there's a lot of fishy stuff, and a lot of people that have smarter than me, as I like to say, came and said it doesn't make sense. I don't know. It's scary to think if it was planned, what else was or what else could be,
Right. And there's things that obviously are in motion now. We hear from time to time of plans that have been squashed by the FBI or CIA or whoever.
Everyone wants to do like this was going to happen or this and that. How crazy is that to hear?
Right.
It's scary.
Especially some of the bigger ones that were near misses, the shoe bomber, and that was just a botched thing. And whether he was who knows? I mean, it's just how far it goes and what happens and are we really capable of watching millions of people, worldwide and spearheading some sort of something that head off an attack or something else, with our technology. I don't know if it can happen. I'm hoping it can happen. So what do you guys have coming up in the next, what's happening for the rest of the summer for you guys? What are you doing?
Yeah, we're not much travel, anything like that. We're working on we're putting together a new live show that we're going to be doing, probably on some locations near us to flesh it out, but no dates on that. We got a couple other irons in the fire, and then we got some fun episodes coming up. We just did the Tunguska Blast that's coming out next I think next week. And we recorded a few ahead of time. We are going to do one on Area 51 again to cover the, don't go out there and try to arrest the gate. And we've got some more, we've got a Owning Ghost Week. It's going to be a fun one. We're calling it, we got some people that own asylums and old hospitals and stuff like that run tours. And we're going to talk to them about what that's like, owning a facility that's quote unquote haunted and experiences that they've had. So that's in a few weeks, that one's going to be coming out too. So it'll be a lot of fun. We haven't recorded that one yet.
So what goes on during your live shows? Just give me a general idea. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, of course.
Right. So our live shows are different than our regular show usually. So what we do is we have like a through line, it's a stage show. We're up, we're standing. We're not behind the desk or anything like that. We always have a presentation. We got a slides, be it, PowerPoint or whatever, and music and things like that. And just, it's interactive. We talk to the crowd, we take questions, things like that. It's not just usually one topic, which I think we're actually going to switch. The one we're fleshing out now is going to be a one topic show. Usually it's several topics and we hit some key points. Like our last one was, UFOs and why do they all have to have Nazis in them, and we talked about that and had some jokes and laughs and made fun of those idiots.
It's fun to joke about Nazis,
Yeah, luckily we can,
I was thinking about doing a show myself, but it'd be like a TED Talk nightmare. I don't think anybody wants to see that, but
I like fun. Going,
Yeah,
we've done some shows with Blurry Photos, another show, and his show is very different than ours. He sits down and tells a story. It's interactive also, though, and it's fun. I've seen Last Podcast on the Left. That's like a rock and roll show, man. It's crazy. Everyone's different, but they're fun. It's fun to get out and meet people, and when we go to a lot of these. When we go to Alien Con and all the different ComiCons that we go to and stuff, we do panels there. It's more like this. We sit down, we have talks. We're going to have a topic, but we take a lot of questions from the audience, see what they want to talk about, see if they, they have anything specific to ask us, and just see where that leads us. And that's a lot of fun.
Very good. We'll keep a listen out for you. And of course, my guest tonight has been UFO researcher and the host of Hysteria 51 podcast, Brent Hand. Thank you so much for being here. And Brent, you get the final word tonight. What is it? I'm putting you on the spot.
Keep your eyes. I'm going to steal this from another show. Alien theorists theorizing. Keep your eyes on the skies.
That's good advice. Brent Hand, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. It was a blast.
My Alien Life Podcast.
You can find my website at www.myalienlifepodcast.com, and please subscribe to my latest downloads at iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and at podbean.com. And please follow me and like me on Facebook and Twitter. My Alien Life is written and produced for broadcast at Studio 254 in the Northern Rocky Mountains. The music you are hearing is produced and created by Elion. You can find all Elion's work online at Heart Dance Records.